All right, inflation was one of the biggest political issues of the year, testing Biden's presidency and the Fed. But it's what happens in 2023 that will provide more clarity if 2022 ended well. Here to break it all down is Yahoo Finance senior columnist Rick Newman. Rick, take it away.
I think as we round out 2022, I think the dominant story for President Biden is the rebound he enjoyed in the second half of the year. Biden ended up having a pretty good year. And if you just go back 6 months ago, guys, it looked terrible for Biden. Back in June, gas prices hit $5 a gallon, and the inflation rate peaked for the year at 9%. And Biden's approval rating, right around the same time, hit an all-time low for his presidency of around 37 or 38%. And then came a kind of a gradual Biden recovery. He got two big laws passed through Congress, which did not look at all inevitable. That would be the CHIPS Act and the Inflation Reduction Act, which is not about inflation, it's about green energy. But those have enjoyed generally pretty good support since then. There are no real lingering controversies over those two laws, the way there was, let's say, after Congress passed Obamacare in 2010. And then Democrats outperformed in the midterm elections. And meanwhile, we've seen inflation coming down. So it's possible as we round out 2022 that we are setting the stage for a pretty good 2023, especially if inflation continues on this gradual downward course, which could put it below 4% or even some forecasters think below 3% by 12 months from now. That would be great for Biden, but there's a lot that could go wrong in the meanwhile. So we'll see what happens. And one of the big questions, of course, is whether this recession that some people think is happening is actually going to materialize next year.
And Rick, another major story on the day, long awaited, Congress released former President Donald Trump's tax returns to the general public. What can you tell us there?
I'm deep in the middle of those tax returns right now. Nobody is going to draw any quick conclusions from these tax returns because they're very complex. They released returns for both Trump's businesses and his personal returns. Just to give you some idea, Trump's individual tax return for just for 2020 alone is 350 pages long. And he has many, many business entities. So it's going to be a long time before we kind of figure out what's really in here. But, my first top line takeaway just from looking at the summary sheets for his business and personal tax returns, I think there's an obvious reason, at least one obvious reason, Trump did not want people to see his tax returns. And it's that he reports business losses almost every year without fail. So if you go back to 2015, when he first announced his candidacy, a big part of his campaign persona was he's this super successful businessman and we need a businessman in the White House. But if you look at his tax returns for his businesses, you'd say, if you're so successful, why are you losing so much money? And this has a lot to do with the way income is reported for real estate developers. And Trump has been able to carry forward big losses from prior years, which is why his tax bill is so low. But if you were just looking at the top line of Trump's tax returns on the business side, you would say this does not look like a successful businessman because somehow he loses money every year. Somehow that's how he gets his tax bill low, and he's got other income streams that finance his gilded lifestyle. But on the surface, he has a lot of explaining to do about how he can be such a successful businessman if he loses so much money.
All right, some light reading material in those 350 pages. Yahoo Finance's Rick Newman. Thanks so much, Rick, for continuing to comb through.